Hey kids, the sun is like blaring today. It's a hot one, and I don't have air conditioning this summer, but I'm in my extended Laura Ingalls phase, I call it. I feel like I've been there for quite some time. So it's been okay. I mean, I don't think I would have ever been able to make it if I was back in like Greer, Travelers Rest, Greenville, South Carolina, but here in Brevard, it hasn't been too bad. I do love the nights that it goes down to like 60 though, and the days are just in the 70s. Those have been my favorite days. I was such a sun worshiper as a kid. I could sit on a beach in Miami for 9 hours and not touch the water. I'll never forget the one trip when I came home and my dad walked past me in the airport because I was like black as night. I was so tan, and everyone in Miami thought I was Hispanic. No one spoke to me in English because I used to use hair gel and it would make those like spiral, like Puerto Rican curls in my hair. And everybody thought I was Spanish or Puerto Rican. Hilarious. This video is going to be more for women. I did a video a while back. I was like super hopped up on fasting, and then I never followed up, which, you know, life takes me in a million different directions, I feel like. But I did that video on fasting because it has really changed a lot for me. I think it's a very good tool and strategy as we women age. And it's all based on Dr. Mindy Pelz, I think. It's Pelz. Fasting Like a Girl is her book. I don't love all of the nutrition and fitness advice out there because I think a lot of it is catered towards men's biology and physiology. And as women, we are drastically different. And as I like to tell, I don't have many men in my life at this point. But men that I, have befriended or business partnerships, and we would dive deep, as I often like to do. And if they were ever curious about anything, I always appreciated when the topic came up, because I would hear things like, well, women are, they're crazy, or, oh, when a woman goes batshit crazy, or women are so complicated. And we are. I mean, men are the simpler creatures. Women, by our essence, just by our inherent nature, are more complex. We're designed to give birth. I mean, that's a complex process, right? We also have 3 driving hormones, and men have 1. For women, it's progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone, and men really function off of testosterone. It's not that they don't produce estrogen, but it is their one driving hormone is testosterone. And so every time I've had this conversation with a man, they're always like, I've never heard this before. And it makes so much sense. It's like a light bulb goes off. If we think of a woman's menstrual cycle as seasons, and so a woman experiences 4 seasons in a month. So we have a winter, spring, summer, and fall. Now, for a high majority of women, their moon time, what I refer to as moon time, our menstrual, cycle, our week of our period, is our winter. Now, that's not tried and true for every woman, and you'd really have to determine that as a woman on your own. But think of the qualities of winter. They're deeply yin, right? Summer is our extreme yang time of year. It is masculine. We have more energy. We feel like we have more hours in a day. It's, because the sun is out longer. And so we get more done. We're more productive. It's more of a time of doing and producing, action oriented. And then winter is a time of contemplation. We go within. Some days it feels like there's less time because there's not as much sunshine. It is a darker time of year. It's deeply feminine. It's the time of year to get cozy, to cozy on up in front of a warm fireplace with a hot cup of, tea or cocoa. So you could imagine, if you're not a woman watching this, how challenging it is for us. And again, I can only speak as a woman here. I understand men being on the receiving end of this is not easy either. This is not a competition, but I'm just kind of like trying to help educate on how difficult and complex, it can be for us to experience these changes week to week. On a more interesting note, I think, than even the fact that women experience 4 seasons in a month. And I know there's men watching this right now like, well, she's always in her winter. Like, that's a whole different video, right? Like, that's a whole different story, because there could be a million other things going on. And yes, if there's huge hormonal disruption, if there's an enormous amount of imbalance, you might have a woman who is not at her happiest. There's not a lot of sunshine happening. But there are a few other things that I could speak to that. And one of them is women's hormones are intrinsically connected to our limbic system. And one of the biggest facets of our limbic system is our amygdala, which I've talked about in another video. And our amygdala is what houses fear and risk-taking. So the opposite of fear is feeling safe. And so if you want your woman to have an amazing orgasm, it starts with safety. Dr. Zach Bush would say it starts at breakfast. So if you want to make love before you go to bed, then be really, really nice to her starting at breakfast time, starting when you wake up. It starts when you both get up out of bed. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that a woman does not facilitate a man's joy and well-being either. But again, I'm just speaking in terms of women, how we function, our hormones in a relationship, period. Outside of hormones and all of this, women cannot ever really fully embody their femininity wholly and completely if they do not feel safe with a man. And statistically speaking, women, that is their number one priority, is feeling safe in a relationship. Now for men, statistically speaking, it's respect. A little bit of fluffing of the ego, but men really want to be respected. And they want their woman to be proud of them. And it's not that women don't crave that either, but we're talking about priority. Women really need to feel safe. And I can tell you from someone who's had extremely challenging past partnerships, that is my number one priority. I definitely fall in line with those statistics, not to make this about me, but I so understand how that can be such a driving force for women. And so it's going to sound really silly when I say this, but a woman's clitoris is very much attached to that. The safer a woman feels, the more those erogenous zones are enhanced and the better performance you're going to see. Not that a woman's performing for you or you're performing for her, but you will absolutely see healthy orgasms, and you will have a very fun, adventurous, healthy sex life with a woman who feels safe. Now, over 70% of women orgasm from clitoris stimulation. So it's external, it's not internally driven. And then the other 30% who are able to have internal orgasms, they actually, most of them need clitoris stimulation at the same time. And then so what happens is when a woman is menopausal, all of this is connected to estrogen. Estrogen spikes during ovulation, and that's when a lot of women are, they're more enthralled with sex and they have their best orgasms during ovulation. And so that's usually the week before a woman's period, her moon time. not 100% hard, fast rule. Again, a woman would have to, our job as a woman is to very much be in tune with this. I don't even like app tracking, like pay attention to yourself, to your body and the changes and your feelings and your emotions week by week by week. Because this all really makes a big difference. So this is also the week of ovulation I'm speaking of. This is also the week where there's a higher tendency to get pregnant. And so we need to be very careful here because there's, kind of like the downside. The libido is high, the orgasms can be amazing, but a pregnancy can ensue because she's at her most fertile. So when I hear men say, and I get it, we are complex. I mean, men are simpler. They are, and a lot of women might be watching this going, oh, Carrie, don't say that. Don't give it to them. No, I'm going to, because it's true. Men are, generally speaking, simpler creatures. Bill Burr does a really good comedy skit on that where he talks about how he can sit all day with a beer watching football, totally content, and his woman is all over the place driving him insane because we're just wired differently. We know this. We have a different brain. Men compartmentalize. There was that scientist that I think got on stage one day. I think he did a TED Talk. It's a very popular YouTube video. And he's, men have a box like, this is my family's here, my job is here, I put this stressor here, I put that here. And women are like one big ball of wired mesh that just doesn't make sense. It's like sacred geometry gone wild. But that's the beauty of a woman. And we can multitask really well. It's why we can raise 5 kids that are, a year to 2 years apart, like absolute whizzes. It's why we can have 5 different conversations at the same time. And then also, just to touch on this very briefly, if you are menopausal, you probably know that your brain goes through a lot of changes during that time. So brain fog and, just losing your train of thought very easily. So your brain is just our hormones are everything. They drive everything. But I was listening to I think it's Mindy Peltz. I hope I'm doing her justice because she's such an amazing person and I love her. And then just to circle back to fasting, where fasting fits into all of this. Fasting has changed my life, especially with my autoimmune conditions, and it's been really helpful in balancing hormones. I've become a really good faster, and it was something I never could do. And I have to research this a little bit better. But what I'm hearing is that if you are not able to fast for 8 hours, you have mitochondrial dysfunction. And to speak a little bit more to that, and I think I've touched on this before, there are a lot of doctors and professionals in the health and wellness field debunking adrenal fatigue. And I was part of this mitochondrial summit, and it was like days long. I mean, I can't tell you how many presenters and doctors and people that I listen to in this field. And they were all saying the same thing, that it's not your adrenals, it's your mitochondria. And when we look at depletion of soils, the fungicides, the herbicides, the pesticides, what we're doing to our food system, that's why God bless all the regenerative farmers. I love you. Everything that you're doing, you're amazing. Farming is so much work. Those of you that know that I left New Jersey and came to South Carolina, and I learned how to farm on an organic farm in Wearshaw, South Carolina. And it was an amazing experience, and it was very, very deeply, deeply humbling. But yeah, so mitochondrial dysfunction, and we're seeing more and more and more of that. And then that's very intrinsically connected to the heightened amount of autoimmune disease and disorders that we're seeing, like MS. And there's so much degenerative diseases of the spine now. And to cycle yoga into this. You know, they say you're only as flexible and young, you're only as young as your spine is flexible. So yoga is all about the spine. They call it the circuit board of the whole body. And then all of this drives your hormones. And so I know I get into the weeds a little bit. I know I can go all over the place. I just get so excited. It's all so connected. It's why you can go to an acupuncturist. I managed an acupuncture office for 2 years, and he wasn't just an acupuncturist. He was a doctor of acupuncture. And why I'm bragging on that is because I learned so much about Chinese medicine and herbs. And I had to order his herbs. I would take notes the whole time I was at the desk because I'm not a sitter. So I was bored to tears. But it served its purpose because I was a single mom and I needed stability, and I was able to bring my kids to work with me. I could leave the office, go pick my kids up from school, bring them back up. Bless that man. He had 7 kids. Dr. Lenahan, you were a blessing. He's in Point Pleasant Borough. So if you live in that area and you're looking for a great acupuncturist, look up Robert Lenahan. Anyway, I'll plug that. I don't even know what that's going to do, but he's amazing. But I learned so much, and I would hear people complain as they were being treated, and they would say, Dr. Lenahan, I told you the pain is in my knee. Why are you sticking all of these needles in my ear or in my head or in my arm? And I can do a whole nother video on this because there's auricular acupuncture, because the ear is like an upside down fetus, and you can just treat every organ and meridian in the ear. You could do that in the thumb. You can do that just in the big toe. I mean, our bodies are amazing, but it's all connected. And I get so excited about stuff like this. So if there are men watching and you cannot understand why you and your woman are so disconnected, the sex is dropped off, she might not feel safe. She might not feel connected. We are more complex, and we need this. That's why Dr. Zach Bush says it starts at breakfast. It's nurturing the emotions. And I know a lot of men are very disconnected from their emotions because of how they were raised, or it's just not innate in them or natural. Find a way. Because if you want to make her come and have amazing orgasms, that's it. That's your answer. That's your answer right there. So if a woman feels safe with you, then you're doing a good job. Then you've got it right. Don't be discouraged if she can't have an orgasm with just sex. 70% of women are not able to do that. So you have to get creative, and that's where the fun and adventure comes in. Because if you're not having fun in the bedroom, I don't know what to tell you people, but like, hello, that should be a freaking blast. That is a source of relaxation and complete surrender of all the bullshit going on around us, all your internal worries, all of the external chaos. Anywho, I hope this helps. So remember, we have a winter, spring, summer, and fall every single month. And to that point, access that. And that will be my next video on how to access that, because our energy levels go up and down. And then maybe I'll talk a little bit more on fasting and when to fast, because there are very specific times, and this all helps us stay well and healthy as women so that we can please our man by having amazing orgasms, because I think every man out there thoroughly enjoys, and I know what it does to his ego when you're a screamy Mimi in complete ecstasy. All right, kids, I hope you feel a little bit smarter. Take care. Happy orgasms.